Does anyone in the UK remember Tokyopop? They were a manga publisher back in the late 2000s and brought titles like Ai Yori Aoshi and Future Diary into the English speaking market. Nowadays they don't do publishing, and copies of their old licensed stuff can go for exorbitant amounts of money online. One publishing run of theirs that was cut short is the English release of the Qwaser of Stigmata. America has the anime in their home video repertoire, but here in the UK, chances of getting our hands on the show are slim at best. With only 2 volumes of the manga out and no reprint in sight, did we miss out on a great long running series, or is it just as well we aren't getting any more of it? Stepsisters Mafuyu and Tomo struggle to cope with the disappearance of their uncle while fighting off the school bullies and attending the local church. Their lives are changed forever when one day a mysterious Russian boy, a Qwaser who can manipulate iron named Sasha, appears. He defends Mafuyu and the church from the wrath of a sinister villain before enrolling at their school. His mission? To protect the Theotokos of Serisu from the grasp of the heretical Qwasers, and to take revenge on the Golden Qwaser. The opening act of this story is really weak, taking its time to set the stage for a stronger plot later on, and forcing a lot of exposition upon us in the process. It uses the first volume to introduce the characters and their dynamics, promote its central themes, and give the cast something worth writing for. A standout aspect of this introduction is the downright cartoonish level of bullying Mafuyu and Tomo endure from their classmates, Hana and Miuri in particular. These mean-spirited characters are eventually demoted from Stephen King's psycho bullies to mild nuisances, but with that relaxation comes a feeling of inconsistency. I do have to say though that the karmic retribution which follows isn't any less hilarious or any less gratifying. While the story is initially weak as a result of its deliberate start, there is a considerable payoff from that later on. Once its characters find their feet, there is some good comedy to be had. As heavy as the story's stakes feel, the manga achieves a decent balance with its characters remaining upbeat and optimistic. At the centre of the plot is Mafuyu and Tomo's sisterly relationship, which I didn't realise I'd become invested in until it was really threatened. I suppose that is the mark of good engagement with the reader, although I'm not entirely sure when I started to value that relationship. You're guaranteed that it'll fracture, but you're never sure when it'll happen or what will cause it, so you end up on edge for a lot of the central story. Despite the impact of those stakes, the cast does an amazing job of taking your mind off of it, and just that makes you thankful for their infrequent hijinks. I've talked an awful lot about the characters in this story segment, haven't I? That's because they're one of the best parts of this manga. You'd think a seinen action manga should feature awesome fights, but no, the action is actually super boring. I almost forgot to talk about it at all in this review because of how little I ended up caring about it. My attention was transfixed on seeing the characters mingle with one another, and by mingle I don't mean in that way. Yes, the Qwaser of Stigmata is famous for its depiction of breastfeeding, a concept that throws some people off the entire series. Personally though, I find the way it's handled to be quite mature and more reminiscent of a mother caring for her child than 2 lovers getting it on. These moments aren't as excessive in detail as they could be, and I don't think that's down to the artwork. From what I've seen of the anime, they seem to have placed more emphasis on fanservice than the original manga did. Breastfeeding is a visual motif that doesn't seem to hold much significance yet other than showing some tits, but you can't call it a stale motif either. The Qwaser of Stigmata is very good with its characters. None of them are put to waste. Everyone who's somebody has something to do with the core plot at one point or another. None of them are unimportant or useless, and there are very few one-note characters as a result. Well, there's this priest whose name I can't remember, but I'm just going to call him Exposition, because that is his only function. Besides him, there is a real effort, especially in the second volume, to give the cast as a whole more depth. Even as the main plot advances, characters we don't expect to grab the spotlight come into focus, and are allowed to show their other sides. Is it a masterwork of characterization? No, but it's more than you'd expect from a manga like this. The leading ladies, Mafuyu and Tomo, are pretty rubbish by themselves, but when you get the 2 together they work well as characters. Mafuyu plays the straight man to Tomo's ditzy antics while remaining steadfast in her pledge to protect her, although like I said, not very compelling on their own, at least not yet. I have a bit of confidence in this manga's ability to fix its own characterization issues. It might want to focus on Teresa first though, who is a criminally forgettable character. Even though she's a key instrument in helping Sasha fight, she rarely makes an appearance. disappearance. A little time is taken specifically to flesh her out, and while it might be better than nothing at all, she still isn't as compelling as characters like Sasha, who is a great character. He refuses to help others, valuing self-reliance over all else, but we still end up liking him regardless. He comes off as an edgelord, but his serious, stubborn demeanour is often played for laughs with the assistance of the other characters. There's an irony to his reliance on a woman's breast for his powers to function, even though he hates people who rely on others. I don't know if that irony is intentional or not, so I'm just gonna let that one slide. It isn't a glaring issue at this point so long as it's addressed in the future. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get the boring gripe out of the way first. There's a big problem with word formatting. In every single manga drawn in the past 20 or so years, a character's thoughts have always been depicted without a speech bubble. This is a steadfast convention of manga, but in the Qwaser of Stigmata these sometimes aren't thoughts, but statements said out loud. It takes you way out of the manga's flow to have to go back and reprocess a body of text as spoken instead of internalised. It's a really silly mistake to have made, and I'm not sure why it turned out this way. Now, the Qwaser of Stigmata is known for its fan service, but honestly with the way it's drawn, it seems like the anime really toned up the sex appeal. There's a lot more this manga wants to do with itself other than showing some skin. It could be more obsessed with its own sexual content like Monster Musume is, but it isn't. When we get down to Kanetsu Sato's drawings, he has his strengths and his weaknesses. Of those, the character designs are cut down the middle, cool on a surface level, but not particularly good designs overall. I can't glean anything about these characters from their designs, but they stand out well and don't clash with one another. I'd rather have good designs over cool ones, but one is better than neither. Meanwhile, Sato's skills at actually drawing these characters are well honed. He uses the features of these designs to the utmost effect, and the villains look especially striking in his style. He also knows when to rein in his pitch black style during comic relief, although even lighter drawings look incredibly stark with a lack of grey shading. Sato's style is one that sacrifices a good bit of detail for visual flair, and where that really becomes a problem is his action scenes. It's so hard to follow the Qwaser of Stigmata's action scenes, not just because of his style, but also because of the disjointed flow these scenes appear to have. Although the material doesn't seem to rely heavily on detail within its action, it could become a major issue later on and is already causing some problems. However, I still believe Kanetsu Sato is a good artist, he's just not suited to a couple of this story's demands. The manga has a lot that isn't going for it. The only official translation is sorely lacking in quality. The artist has trouble keeping up with the story's flexible demands sometimes, and its themes can be a complete face value turn-off for some people. But in spite of all that, I am still extremely fond of what it represents, a unique and self-aware series that is unlike any other manga of its genres. Yes, these 2 volumes are not all that strong, but they have a lot of potential that we in the English market never got to see fulfilled. It is a terrible shame that the Qwaser of Stigmata didn't get fully translated, and I can only hope Yen Press or 7 Seas Entertainment deem it as worthy to pick up as I have. The first and only 2 volumes published in English by Tokyopop can be found online. I'm not sure how tough or how expensive it is to get today though, but good luck if you're that determined to find it. If you like the look of the fan service, then I'd recommend High School DxD. Magic, religion, titties. High School DxD has it all, and actually makes a compelling case for plot and fan service living in harmony. Or if you want a manga that deals with similarly religious themes, then go check out 7th Garden. It's a pretty decent, if juvenile, shonen manga where angels and demons battle it out for control of the world. It's also a little racier than you'd expect a Jump series to be, but there you have it. If you liked what you saw and want to see more, remember to subscribe, or follow me on Twitter for the latest updates. If you're a fan of my content, then you can donate to my Patreon if you like, or join me for a chat on my Discord server. Links are down in the description, and until next time, cheerio.